In fact, we have one group here that has over 60 years of planning experience. I'm happy to have Mr. David French and Mr. Tom Storey here, who have seen a multitude of planning businesses here in Chatham-Kent. Gentlemen, so thanks for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
Thank you. I got to ask you guys, how have you guys been doing during these very interesting times in our community, province, and the whole world for that matter?
Go ahead, Dave.
Thankfully, we've been healthy, and the forced closures and shutdown have sort of stifled us a little bit, but we've been able to work from home. We've been able to work from our closed office. With the technology available to us, we're still forging ahead on a daily basis, still working on lots of interesting things. So I would say we're doing well, yes.
So, and Tom, how about yourself?
Everything he said.
That's easier said than done. Now I know you guys, again, with summer here, there's always something to be done. But I thought we'd just go right back to the bare basics. Some people might be living under a rock and may not even know what the responsibility of a planner is. Do one of you want to share a brief description of what your responsibilities and roles are?
Sure. Most people don't know. So there is, for any project to proceed, as Mr. T-Bear outlined, I guess, in his show with you, there's a wide variety of steps you undergo in identifying where this is occurring, dealing with various constraints on the site with regard to impact on neighboring properties, the availability of the appropriate servicing and other infrastructure. And the way the process normally works is we have let's say we're retained by a developer of some sort. We talk about their concept. We will then take that concept to the planning department here in Chatham-Kent, for instance, and do what's called a pre-consultation. We will get their response. They'll give us an idea of the types of background studies. There could be quite a few required, maybe just one or two, and maybe only one, for instance. Identify what types of applications under the Planning Act they will require. The most common ones regard amendments to the zoning bylaw, the official plan, and normally there's some kind of lot creation process which can occur either through plan of subdivision or what we call a severance activity. And eventually you need to get your site plan approved as well. So based on that based on that first pre-consultation with the municipality, we spring into action. Our role would be to prepare a particular planning document called the Planning Justification Report, which addresses policy issues at the provincial and local level to show that what's proposed is in fact in keeping with those policies or the intent of those policies.
I'm going to make a really bad pun here. It certainly takes a lot of planning. I'm sure you've heard that one a billion times in order to get some of these buildings prepared or even just rezoning of property. Here we are in the pandemic, about a year in, and we're seeing a multitude of small businesses crashing. But at the same time, we're still seeing buildings, coming in, and we're still seeing at planning meetings, we're still seeing things happening. So kind of from both your perspectives, what have you guys been seeing that the normal average citizen has not seen?
So I think what is most evident to me is people are still spending money, and there is a lot of money being spent, especially locally, simply because people can't travel. So people have perhaps been putting off a new fence or a pool or a deck or a renovation, for instance. And a lot of times when somebody puts a deck or a garage up, for instance, they do need to go through a Planning Act exercise, a minor variance perhaps. So we are seeing, not just our business, but Chatham-Kent in general is seeing just a huge number of minor variance applications being submitted because people can't travel, they can't spend money outside of Chatham-Kent, so they're spending it on their own property. And with the housing prices, it's definitely a good investment into your own property right now. So. And it's not just the homeowners that are busy; it's developers too, based on the housing market. There's just an obscene number of houses being constructed in southwestern Ontario right now. Chatham-Kent is one, but also we have clients in Leamington, Windsor, and Sarnia that are doing just huge subdivisions. So the reasons for that, they vary greatly. But I think it's not a secret that Chatham-Kent and Windsor-Essex, for instance, they're seeing a lot of people move from the larger urban areas such as Toronto, Kitchener-Waterloo, because they're finding that they can work from home remotely, just as we've been able to do in our office. So there is a lot of money being spent, and thankfully it is being spent locally. So yeah, I would say that would be the biggest thing that I see personally.
I think the pandemic has accelerated it, actually, is the ability to work from home. You can live almost anywhere now in Chatham-Kent, knock on wood, actually, before I get too far on that one. But certainly with the access to high-speed internet, people being able to work from home, which was a trend already occurring prior to the pandemic hitting, is now in full swing. My grandson, for instance, who is home right now, but normally lives and works in Toronto, can live anywhere, frankly, and he's got a job in what I'll call it movie making, and and he's working on productions where everybody works from home, basically.
In a planning world, has much changed, or do you think, or David, you were talking about pools going in. I've heard stories about pools are going to take up 2 to 3 years for a zoning, a fence being put up. Are you guys going to see any new differences and changes in how you do any of your paperwork?
I don't think there'll be many changes. I think what we will see as time goes on is some changes to some upper level policies, whether they're at a provincial or municipal level. The policies that are in place now were all designed, ages ago, and they've just sort of been reintroduced and reworked a little bit. But there is a sort of a definite shift to the way people are living right now. And I think the policies have to change in order to catch up to the way that people live. And, what worked from an official plan perspective or a provincial policy statement perspective 10, 15 years ago may not be appropriate as we move forward with people working from home, not traveling as much. So I think, as far as the process itself goes, it won't change too much. But I think there is going to be just an adjustment period to changing policies. Some may become more strict, some may become more lenient. But at the end of the day, it's the policies that are in place that not just we as planners have to deal with, but the general public also. So, an application form is an application form. But what goes into, what you write in the application form may require just a different way of thinking. So,
Tom, anything you'd like to add?
I agree with Dave that, the applications themselves won't change. You need basic information, which these applications are designed to get. As far as the flow goes, one of the things, probably the most significant effect of the pandemic, certainly, and what's been happening here is that our planning department and also other departments, but obviously it's the planning department we work with the most and the closest, has been overwhelmed, maybe too strong a word, but and maybe not. You know, the pace of development until a couple of years ago was pretty benign, not particularly heavy. There was the odd project, obviously, but we had the resources, whether it be, you know, purely the public sector or the combination of the public and private sector, to stay abreast of that. But it's almost like overnight we had a wide variety of projects, you know, certainly within our office, and I know elsewhere in the municipality, and CK has been scrambling to deal with those. You know, I think they've done a really good job in trying to cut red tape, or although there'll be a lot of people who'll be surprised to hear me say that, but as Dave said, we work in other jurisdictions where that hasn't happened, where there's the, you know, we've worked the planning departments that for them it's the same old, and things take way longer to get approved in some of these other areas than they do here.
Gentlemen, you certainly have a lot on your plate, and you know, as old infrastructure gets replaced to new infrastructure, there's certainly near to no end of it. So we got to thank you for all that you guys are doing. Is there anything you guys would like to share about, you know, what you love about your job, or, you know, just what kind of you've seen in this past year, post-pandemic, pre-pandemic, you know, just how we've been trudging along in these very unprecedented times?
Go ahead, Dave.
I think the thing I enjoy most about my job is the interaction with people and finding solutions. You know, it's tough sometimes because we are sort of bound by, again, policies that are more or less, I don't want to say set in stone, but it's pretty close, especially at a provincial level. There's a process to go through to change municipal policies, but at the end of the day, municipal policies still have to be consistent with the provincial policies. So it always feels really good to find a solution to a problem for a client, and sometimes that solution involves you know, some concessions. But at the end of the day, we have a very good track record of producing solutions for our clients, and the clients that we have, they come back, which again, it makes us feel really good when that happens.
The thing I enjoy most, and I don't consider what I do to be related to work as much as, I think I'm in my retirement. I'm just happen to be doing stuff that I really like to do. But it's always been that way. And meeting people, every project, if you will, that we deal with is unique. So there's not this assembly line type of work going through that might make the job tedious and uninteresting. It's exactly the opposite.
Absolutely. You don't realize how much customer service planners do until you know, like you said, David, you know, that your clients keep coming back and, you know, are satisfied with everything. And, you know, Tom, you also mentioned, you know, the amount of red tape and different acts. I didn't realize how many acts the province does have to get through some of these things. So without planners like yourselves, you know, buildings can't go in, you know, a piece of property can't be rezoned. So we have to thank you guys for all you've been doing. You know, like I said, 60 years of over planning experience. You know, I wouldn't even know where to start. So again, we have to thank you guys for what you've been doing during these crazy times and continue what to do. So thanks for joining me today, and keep on planning and getting all that paperwork that we don't see. We just see, you know, the final product. And again, that all goes behind the scenes from you guys.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Eric.